Stop believing the fairy tale that successful people are different from you. Stop thinking they have some special gift, some magical advantage, some secret formula you don't possess. The only difference between someone living their dreams and someone making excuses is what they do when they're tired, while you're sleeping in because you're exhausted. They're getting up anyway, while you're taking a break because you're overwhelmed. They're pushing through anyway, while you're waiting for tomorrow because today feels too hard. They're making today count anyway. The harsh reality nobody talks about is that your competition isn't resting just because you are, and your dreams aren't waiting just because you're tired. You know what separates winners from quitters? It's not talent, it's not luck, it's not even opportunity. It's what you do when you're so tired you can barely stand, when every fiber of your being is screaming for you to stop, when the world seems to be pushing against you with the force of a hurricane. That's when champions are made. That's when destiny is decided. Let me tell you about Rosa. Rosa was a single mother of 3 living in a tiny apartment in Detroit. She worked 2 jobs, cleaning offices at night and stocking shelves during the day for years. She had a dream that seemed impossible. She wanted to open her own catering business. She had always been gifted in the kitchen, creating meals that made people close their eyes and smile with the first bite. But dreams don't pay rent. Dreams don't put food on the table. Dreams don't take care of sick children. Then the recession hit. Rosa lost both jobs within the same week. The office building where she cleaned was sold, and the grocery store where she worked cut half their staff. She sat at her kitchen table that Friday night, looking at a pile of bills she couldn't pay, with $17 to her name and 3 hungry children asking what was for dinner. Most people would have called that the end of the story. Rosa called it the beginning instead of looking for another job. Something inside her said this was her moment. Not the convenient moment, not the comfortable moment, the necessary moment. She took those $17 and bought ingredients. She cooked all weekend, making 50 portions of her grandmother's famous jerk chicken recipe. Monday morning, she packed everything into coolers and went to the business district downtown. She set up on a corner and started selling lunch plates for $8 each. The first day, she sold 12 plates. She made $96 that night. She calculated that if she could do this every day, she could make more than both her previous jobs combined. But here's where it gets difficult. She had to wake up at 4 in the morning to prep the food. She had to carry heavy coolers on public transportation. She had to stand on her feet for 8 hours in all kinds of weather. She had to face rejection from customers who walked past without buying. She had to deal with city officials who questioned her permits. She had to manage inventory with almost no capital. After 3 weeks, Rosa was more exhausted than she had ever been in her life. Her back ached from carrying coolers. Her feet were swollen from standing on concrete. Her hands were cut and burned from all the cooking. Her children complained that they never saw her anymore. The $17 had grown to almost $800, but she felt like she was running on empty. That's when the doubt crept in. That's when the voice in her head started whispering that maybe she should just find a regular job. Maybe this was too hard. Maybe she wasn't cut out for business. Maybe she should be practical and stop chasing dreams. You see, this is the moment where most people stop. This is where dreams go to die. Not when things are obviously impossible, but when they're difficult and you're tired. When success is possible, but the price seems too high. When you can see the finish line, but you're not sure you have enough energy to reach it. But Rosa had learned something that took me years to understand. She learned that tiredness is not a stop sign. It's a test. It's life asking you how badly you want what you say you want. It's the universe checking to see if your commitment matches your conversation. So Rosa made a decision that changed everything. She decided that being tired was not a reason to quit. It was proof that she was working towards something meaningful. Every ache in her body was evidence that she was building something. Every moment of exhaustion was an investment in her future. She kept going. She got up at 4 in the morning, even when her body begged for more sleep. She carried those coolers, even when her back screamed in protest. She smiled at customers, even when she felt like crying. She counted every dollar, even when her eyes could barely focus. And something miraculous started to happen. Regular customers began asking if she could cater their office meetings. Word spread about the woman with the amazing food on 5th Street. Local newspapers wrote about her story. Other vendors started asking for her advice. The $800 became $2,000. The $2,000 became $5,000. Today, Rosa owns 3 restaurants and employs 47 people. But that's not the real victory. The real victory is what happened inside her during those exhausting weeks when she chose to keep going. She discovered that she was stronger than her circumstances. She learned that her capacity to endure was greater than her capacity to complain. She found out that on the other side of exhaustion lies a strength she never knew she had. You see, everyone gets tired. Everyone faces moments when continuing seems impossible. Everyone reaches points where quitting looks like the logical choice. But there's a difference between being tired and being finished. There's a difference between needing rest and needing to quit. There's a difference between being exhausted and being defeated. Your tiredness is not a verdict on your capability. It's feedback on your commitment. It's information about how hard you're working toward your goal. It's proof that you're doing something that matters, something that requires everything you have to give. The question is not whether you'll get tired. You will. The question is what you'll do when tiredness tries to convince you that you're done. Will you let fatigue have the final word on your future? Will you allow exhaustion to write the conclusion to your story? Or will you do what Rosa did? Use your tiredness as fuel for your determination. Because here's what I've learned after decades of studying human potential. Your greatest breakthrough is often hiding on the other side of your greatest exhaustion. Now, let me tell you about a man who understood this principle better than anyone else in history. His name was Thomas Edison. And on a cold December night in 1914, his world literally went up in flames. His entire laboratory in West Orange, New Jersey, was burning to the ground. 10 buildings, years of research, millions of dollars in equipment, decades of work, turning to ash before his eyes. Edison was 67 years old. He had already given the world the light bulb, the phonograph, the motion picture camera. He could have retired comfortably, lived off his reputation, enjoyed his golden years. Instead, he had been working 18-hour days, pushing the boundaries of human innovation, refusing to slow down even when his body begged him to rest. And now, watching his life's work burn. What do you think he did? Did he fall to his knees in despair? Did he curse the heavens for his misfortune? Did he decide that at 67, he was too old and too tired to start over? Edison ran to find his son Charles and shouted over the roar of the flames, "Charles, go get your mother and all her friends. They'll never see another fire like this one. All our mistakes are burning up. Thank God we can start fresh." The next morning, Edison was back at work. Not next week, not next month, the next morning. While the ruins were still smoking, he was already making plans to rebuild. He was exhausted, financially devastated, and emotionally drained. But he understood something that most people never learn. Exhaustion is not your enemy. It's your teacher, you see. There are different types of tiredness. And if you don't understand them, they'll defeat you before you even realize what's happening. There's body tiredness. That's when your muscles ache and your energy feels depleted. There's mind tiredness. That's when your thoughts feel foggy and decision-making becomes difficult. There's heart tiredness. That's when disappointment and setbacks make you feel emotionally drained. But the most dangerous type is purpose tiredness. That's when you start questioning why you're doing what you're doing. That's when you begin to wonder if your goals are worth the effort. That's when you consider whether you should just settle for less than what you know you're capable of achieving. Edison experienced all 4 types that night. His body was exhausted from years of relentless work. His mind was overwhelmed by the complexity of starting over. His heart was heavy with the loss of irreplaceable research. His purpose was being tested by circumstances that would have destroyed lesser men. But Edison knew a secret that I want to share with you today. He knew that the moment you want to quit is often the moment before your breakthrough. He understood that exhaustion is not a sign that you're going in the wrong direction. It's a sign that you're going in the direction that matters. Think about it. You don't get tired watching television. You don't get exhausted scrolling through social media. You don't feel drained taking the easy path. Exhaustion is the tax you pay for pursuing excellence. It's the price you pay for refusing to accept mediocrity. It's the cost of admission to the club of people who achieve extraordinary things. And when you're tired, it means you're working on something that requires effort. When you're exhausted, it means you're pushing beyond your comfort zone. When you feel like you can't go on, it means you're in the exact place where champions are made. Edison rebuilt his laboratory. He created new inventions. He filed more patents after the fire than he had before it. At an age when most people are thinking about retirement, he was thinking about revolution. Why? Because he understood that exhaustion is not a destination. It's a passage. It's not where you stop. It's where you push through to reach the other side. Your tiredness is actually intelligence. It's your body and mind telling you that you're doing something significant. It's confirmation that you're not coasting through life. It's proof that you're engaged in the difficult work of becoming who you're meant to be. But here's what most people don't realize. The moment you feel like quitting is often the moment you're closest to success. It's like digging for water. You dig and dig and dig, and nothing happens. Your arms are sore, your back is aching, your hands are blistered. Logic tells you to stop, but professional well diggers will tell you that water is often just 3 feet away from where people give up. Your breakthrough might be just 3 days away. Your solution might be just 3 attempts away. Your victory might be just 3 steps away. But you'll never know if you let exhaustion convince you to stop digging. Edison understood this. He knew that exhaustion is not a wall, it's a doorway. It's not an ending, it's a beginning. It's not a reason to stop, it's a reason to keep going with even more determination than before. But now I want to tell you about where real energy comes from. I want to tell you about a woman named Grace who discovered the secret that most people never find. Grace was a 3rd grade teacher in a school that everybody had given up on. Test scores were the lowest in the district. Parents were pulling their children out. The building was falling apart. Other teachers were requesting transfers. The administration was talking about shutting the school down. Grace had been teaching there for 15 years. She was 53 years old, tired from years of fighting a system that seemed designed to fail the children she loved. Her salary was barely enough to support her own family. She could have easily transferred to a better school district, taken an early retirement, or found a completely different career. Instead, she made a decision that changed everything. She decided that these children deserved better. and she was going to give it to them, regardless of what anyone else did or didn't do. Grace started arriving at school 2 hours early and staying 3 hours late. She used her own money to buy supplies. She created after-school programs. She visited students' homes to understand their challenges. She organized community events to bring parents into the school. She fought with administrators for resources. She applied for grants that other teachers said were impossible to get. The work was exhausting. There were nights when Grace fell asleep at her kitchen table, grading papers until 2 in the morning. There were weekends when she spent her entire paycheck on classroom materials. There were moments when she questioned whether she was making any difference at all. But something incredible started happening. Grace discovered that the more she gave, the more energy she had to give. The more tired she became from working for her students, the more alive she felt. The more she invested in their success, the more strength she found to keep investing. You see, Grace had tapped into something that most people never access. She had found the energy source that never runs empty. It's not physical energy that comes from rest. It's not mental energy that comes from motivation. It's not emotional energy that comes from encouragement. It's purpose energy that comes from knowing that what you're doing matters more than how you feel while you're doing it. Within 3 years, Grace School went from the worst performing in the district to one of the top 5. Test scores increased by over 200%. Parent involvement tripled. The waiting list to get into the school grew to over 300 families. Grace was named Teacher of the Year, not just for her district, but for the entire state. But that's not the real miracle. The real miracle is what happened to Grace herself. At 56, she had more energy than she'd had at 36. She was working longer hours, but feeling more alive. She was carrying more responsibility, but experiencing more joy. She was facing greater challenges, but discovering greater strength. This is the secret that successful people know but rarely talk about. Your deepest energy doesn't come from your circumstances. It comes from your connection to something bigger than yourself. When you're working for a purpose that transcends your personal comfort, you tap into a reservoir of strength that you never knew existed. Physical energy comes and goes. Mental energy rises and falls. Emotional energy fluctuates with your mood. But purpose energy is renewable. It doesn't get depleted by use. It gets strengthened by exercise. The more you use it, the more you have. When you're tired but you keep going because lives depend on it, you discover energy you didn't know you had. When you're exhausted but you push forward because your dreams demand it, you access strength that comes from beyond yourself. When you're drained, but you continue because your purpose requires it, you find that the well of determination runs deeper than you ever imagined. Grace learned that small actions taken when you're tired create momentum that carries you through the next challenge. One phone call to a parent, one extra hour of preparation, one moment of encouragement to a struggling student. These tiny investments compound over time into transformation that seems impossible. Let me share with you the story of an old man named Samuel, who taught me one of the most powerful lessons about persistence I've ever learned. Samuel was 82 years old when I met him. And every morning at sunrise, you could find him in his backyard planting trees, oak trees, maple trees, pine trees. He would dig holes, carefully place saplings, water them, and tend to them with the devotion of a parent caring for children. One day, I couldn't contain my curiosity anymore. I walked over to him and said, "Samuel, these trees won't mature for decades. You know you'll never sit in their shade, right? He stopped digging, looked at me with eyes that held the wisdom of 8 decades, and said something that changed my perspective forever. Son, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. I'm not planting these trees for me. I'm planting them for people I'll never meet, in a future I'll never see. Because someone I never knew planted the tree that's given me shade today. That conversation revolutionized how I think about taking action when you're tired. Samuel understood something that most people miss completely. When you're exhausted and motivation is absent, you don't need inspiration to move forward. You need systems. You don't need to feel good to do good. You need to do good regardless of how you feel. Here's the first strategy Samuel taught me when you have nothing left. Focus on the smallest possible action. Don't think about planting a forest. Plant one tree. Don't think about running a marathon. Take one step. Don't think about completing the entire project. Complete one task. The magic is not in the size of the action. The magic is in the consistency of taking action when action feels impossible. Samuel planted one tree at a time, but he planted every single day, rain or shine, sick or healthy, motivated or exhausted. He had created a system that didn't depend on his feelings. His commitment was bigger than his comfort. His promise was stronger than his tiredness. The second strategy is what I call the compound effect of micro-progress. Every small action you take when you're tired builds on every other small action you've taken. It's like interest in a bank account. The first deposit seems insignificant, but over time, those tiny deposits create wealth that transforms your entire financial future. When you make one phone call when you don't feel like making any calls, you're making a deposit in your success account. When you write one paragraph when you don't feel like writing anything, you're investing in your future as an author. When you exercise for 10 minutes when you don't feel like exercising at all, you're building the foundation for a healthy life. The third strategy Samuel demonstrated is the power of serving something beyond yourself. He wasn't planting trees for his own benefit. He was planting them for future generations. This shift in perspective transforms exhaustion from an obstacle into an offering. Your tiredness becomes a sacrifice you're making for people who will benefit from your persistence, and you're working late, not just for your own success, but for your family's future. You find energy you didn't know existed. When you're pushing through difficulty, not just for personal gain, but to create opportunities for others, you access strength that comes from beyond yourself. The fourth strategy is learning to maintain forward motion without burning out completely. This means understanding the difference between sustainable effort and destructive effort. Samuel could plant trees at 82 because he had learned to work consistently without working compulsively. He took breaks when his body needed them, but he never took extended vacations from his commitment. Now let me tell you about a man whose story will show you exactly what happens when you refuse to let tiredness write the final chapter of your life. His name was David, and 5 years ago he had everything a man could want. A successful construction business that employed 37 people, a beautiful home in the suburbs, 2 cars in the driveway, a healthy marriage of 22 years, college funds fully funded for both his children, a retirement account that would have secured his future. Then the economy collapsed. Not gradually, but like dominoes falling in rapid succession. First, 3 major contracts were canceled in the same week. Then the bank called in his business loan early. His biggest client declared bankruptcy. leaving David with over $200,000 in unpaid invoices. Within 60 days, David had to lay off all his employees, sell his equipment, and close the business he had spent 15 years building. But that was just the beginning. The stress destroyed his marriage. His wife, overwhelmed by the financial pressure and uncertainty, filed for divorce. The house went into foreclosure. The cars were repossessed. The college funds were liquidated to pay creditors. David found himself at 47 years old, living in a one-bedroom apartment, working as a laborer for a company that used to be his competitor, or making in a month what he used to make in a day. Most men would have been broken by this sequence of losses. Most would have fallen into depression, addiction, or despair. Most would have concluded that their best days were behind them, that life had dealt them a hand they couldn't overcome, that starting over at 47 was impossible. David was exhausted, not just physically tired from manual labor his body wasn't accustomed to, but soul tired from loss, heart tired from betrayal, mind tired from constantly worrying about a future that seemed hopeless. Every morning when his alarm went off at 5:30, every fiber of his being wanted to stay in bed, to give up, to accept that this was just how his story would end. But David made a decision that changed everything. He decided that his circumstances were not his conclusion. He decided that his losses were not his limits. He decided that being tired was not the same as being finished. And most importantly, he decided that every day he woke up was another opportunity to take one step toward rebuilding what had been destroyed. David started small. He saved $5 from every paycheck, no matter how tight money was. He studied construction management books from the library during his lunch breaks. He took evening classes in business accounting at the community college. Even when he was exhausted from 10 hours of physical labor, he networked with other contractors, not as someone looking for handouts, but as someone preparing for his comeback. For 2 years, David lived this disciplined, exhausting routine. Wake up at 5:30, work 10 hours, study for 2 hours, save every possible dollar, sleep 6 hours, repeat. There were nights when he fell asleep over his textbooks. There were weekends when he was too tired to socialize or date. There were moments when he questioned whether all this effort was worth it. Then something beautiful started happening. David's supervisor began giving him more responsibility because of his reliability and knowledge. A former employee called and asked if David would consider partnering on a small residential project. A client who remembered David's quality work reached out about renovating their office building. The $5 he had been saving every week had grown to over $5,000. David took that first small contract and completed it with the same excellence that had built his reputation years earlier. The client was so impressed that they recommended him to 3 other property owners. Those projects led to bigger projects. The bigger projects led to the need for employees. Within 18 months, David had hired back 6 of his former workers. Today, David's construction company is larger than it was before he lost everything. He owns 2 homes, one where he lives and one that he rents for passive income. He has remarried a woman who admires his resilience and shares his values. He speaks at business conferences about comeback strategies. His children, now adults, tell people that watching their father rebuild taught them more about character than any lecture ever could. But here's what David will tell you is the real victory. The real victory is not the business success or the financial recovery. The real victory is who he became during those exhausting years when he refused to quit. He discovered that he was stronger than his circumstances. He learned that his capacity to endure was greater than his capacity to complain. He found out that his determination was more powerful than his discouragement. David will tell you that the man who lost everything was not the same man who rebuilt everything. The process of persisting through exhaustion transformed him into someone he never could have become if life had been easy. The tiredness he experienced was not punishment for his past mistakes. It was preparation for his future greatness. You see, when you refuse to stop moving forward, even when you're tired, something miraculous happens inside you. You discover reserves of strength you never knew existed. You develop levels of discipline you never thought possible. You build character that can't be shaken by circumstances. You become the kind of person who doesn't just survive setbacks, but uses them as setups for comebacks. Your tiredness today is not your enemy. It's your teacher. It's showing you what you're capable of when you push beyond what feels comfortable. It's revealing strength you didn't know you had. It's preparing you for opportunities you can't yet see. So keep going, even if you're tired. Your breakthrough is waiting on the other side of your exhaustion.